Okay, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to do something that is just so satisfying. We're going to reverse engineer the actual mechanics of iron farms. We're taking what usually looks like this chaotic, complex black box of a build, and we're turning it into a precise feat of digital engineering. You know, if you've ever stood at the base of a massive, incredibly noisy iron farm and just wondered, what exactly is happening in the game's code to make this actually work? Well, you are in the exact right place. But first, I've got to ask you, are you really still mining for iron? Look, we all know that early game grind, right? It's dangerous, it's tedious, and frankly, once your survival base reaches a certain size, stripping out massive caves just for a few dozen ingots, it just doesn't scale. You've got way better things to do. So the real question is, are you ready to move beyond basic survival and start actually manipulating the world's natural mechanics to do all that heavy lifting for you? Because guys, here's the payoff. 400. A basic, well-designed iron golem farm can literally pump out 300 to 400 iron ingots every single hour passively. While you're off building your mega base, trading with villagers, or, exploring the nether, this system is just working in the background. It completely eliminates the need to ever swing a pickaxe at an iron ore block ever again. You're basically turning time directly into resources. So here's the blueprint for how we're breaking this down today. First, we'll look at the village engine. Then we'll move on to the panic trigger. After that, we'll get into building the machine. And finally, we'll cover fixing broken farms. All right, let's jump right into part one, the village engine. So before we can even think about farming golems, we absolutely have to establish our foundation, which means understanding what the game actually considers a village. And you can forget about the aesthetics here. The game's code does not care about your beautiful architecture or those old wooden doors from classic versions. The modern village engine runs entirely on a very specific set of data points. A village is defined not by houses, but strictly by proximity to a claimed bed, a job site block like a grindstone or a lectern, or a gathering bell. The exact moment a villager links to one of those items, the game basically draws an invisible boundary and says, yep, this right here, this is a village. So the absolutely crucial point to remember here is that you need these exact components to prime that engine for golem spawning. You need a minimum of 10 villagers. You also need beds for them, and definitely take note of the addition difference here because Java requires at least 10 beds, but Bedrock Edition has strict rules requiring 20 beds for those 10 villagers. They also need valid access to their workstations, and finally, you need the catalyst to really make this engine roar to life. One single zombie or a zombie villager. Which perfectly brings us to part two, the panic trigger. Okay, so we've got our village engine primed, right? But a happy, peaceful village only spawns a golem every now and then, and we are looking for industrial scale production. This brings us to a somewhat dark but highly effective truth. Iron golems are essentially the village tanks. They are explicitly designed to protect the inhabitants from threats. So, to get infinite iron, we exploit this exact mechanic. We are basically harnessing the villagers' constant, perpetual terror to mass produce and then harvest their natural bodyguards. It is literally a closed-loop system of terror and reward. It's pretty wild to see how we take the natural defensive behavior of the village and just weaponize it. In a normal setting, natural spawns happen so golems can patrol meeting areas and protect villagers from hostile mobs. But for forced spawns, we trap a single zombie, usually in a minecart or tucked behind some glass, putting it right directly in the line of sight of our villagers. The villagers see it and they panic, and this panic immediately forces the game's code to evaluate the area, realize the village is supposedly under threat, and instantly spawn an iron golem to deal with it. All right, moving on to part three, building the machine. Now that we've got our computational engine and that psychological panic trigger sorted out, we need to control exactly where this golem appears. To do this, you're going to follow these strict engineering steps. First, create your villager platform and elevate it. A lot of experts recommend going at least 20 to 30 blocks high just to completely isolate the farm. And make sure you provide those beds and workstations up there. Second, trap your zombies securely so it can be seen by the 10 villagers but can't actually attack them. Third, build a platform of solid blocks directly above or around this center area. The game is specifically checking for valid solid blocks to place this massive golem on. And fourth, you're going to add water channels to immediately sweep that newly spawned golem away into a lava kill chamber before it can even swing its arms. And that setup brilliantly illustrates the final stage of the machine. The water perfectly pushes the golem right into a suspended lava blade.
Now, because iron golems have such a massive health pool, they do not burn down instantly like softer mobs do. This delay is huge because it allows them to basically sink down safely, so that when they are finally defeated, the drops aren't instantly destroyed by the lava. You just have hoppers sitting right underneath the kill zone to seamlessly catch all those iron ingots, and of course the poppies dropped by these 12-foot flower-loving bricks of solid metal.
But what if things go wrong? Let's look at part 4, fixing broken farms. So, what actually happens when you build the whole thing step by step and the machine is just sitting there completely quietly? Well, the single biggest mistake players make is totally ignoring which version of the game they're actually running. Java Edition farms rely heavily on the line of sight and zombie scare mechanics we were just talking about. Bedrock Edition, though, that is a completely different beast. It demands super precise village definitions, specific bed counts, like we mentioned, those 20 beds for 10 villagers, and incredibly careful spacing. Mixing Edition advice from different guides or tutorials is basically a guaranteed way to completely break your farm's computer logic.
Beyond mixing up the additions, you really want to pay close attention to this list of common errors. For instance, if you're building a golem manually just for base defense, never place the carved pumpkin before the iron body is totally finished. That pumpkin absolutely has to go last to trigger the spawn. In automated farms, poor spawn proofing is without a doubt your worst enemy. A random dirt shelf, a nearby cave, or even random rooftop slabs will absolutely steal your golem spawns. Building the farm too close to existing random village beds will also totally confuse the village center. Letting villagers somehow break their workstation links is another classic fail. Oh, and a quick word to the wise. If you happen to be annoying villagers near a natural golem, well, you're going to find out firsthand just how high they can launch you. Ultimately, when things do go wrong and you're just standing there staring at an empty spawning platform, try to remember this great piece of wisdom from our sources. Most problems come from bad assumptions, not bad materials. You know, the game's code is doing exactly what you built it to do, evaluating the environment precisely as it's written. If it's not spawning, it's not a glitch. It's just spawning somewhere you didn't expect, or a specific condition is missing. You just have to step back and find that missing variable. So there you have it. We've broken down the code, we've successfully weaponized the village defenses, and we've walked through the strict engineering of the build and how to troubleshoot it when it breaks. You literally now hold the blueprint to infinite iron. But, you know, the real question is this. Now that you actually understand how easily the game's underlying logic can be manipulated, what other digital ecosystems are you going to exploit next?